If I gave you a shot to go into the room when they're putting the bracket together, Clark, instead of you being part of the selection show from the television side of things, and I put you in that room to actually put this bracket together, how would you have seeded these teams differently, do you think?
I'm not sure I would have, Rich. I've been in the mock selection process a couple of times as a broadcaster, and they give you a full rehearsal of what it's like. It's intense. It's thorough. There's conversation and debate. There are objective criteria that is used to evaluate teams. Those criteria are subjectively interpreted. Therefore, the 10-person committee will have individual votes and majority rules as these teams are voted on in groups. Not much that I think I would individually do differently in terms of seeding the teams. We always have teams that underperform their seed and overperform their seed. That will never, ever change. The teams are seeded based on the interpretation of the evaluation criteria and that somebody has to be on every seed line. So for me, I don't see I understand the debate, but I don't see the reason to make it much more than a discussion point 24 to 48 hours after the event. And once you get there, you better strap it on and play, because whoever's in front of you typically can beat you if you don't perform.
That said, I mean, I'm sure Richard Pitino would say, hey, didn't they see what Middle Tennessee State did to Tom Izzo the year before, or had somehow, some way Wichita State been able to pull it out against Coach Cal? He even said that in the post-game interview as soon as the thing was over. He said that Wichita State was poorly seeded, and Greg Marshall basically said, how many times do we have to do this to get the committee to understand? I mean, so there has to be some sort of recalibration, since we have already agreed on parity here.
You've highlighted a couple of exceptions, and it happens to have happened to the same teams. Kentucky was an 8 seed in 2014. Everybody, and remember now, the teams are not seeded based on what happened last year or their program history. They're seeded based on, and you have a valid point with Wichita State this year. Clearly, some of the metrics and indicators pointed to them perhaps being a higher seed, but it didn't happen that way. So I don't know if you tweak for the exception. There are 68 teams seeded, and if you're going to tweak and remake the process because 2 or 3 teams seem to be seated above or below where they should have been, I don't know what all the screaming and belly aching about is.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.